Welcome back. Okay, today we are unpacking a massive, absolute blockbuster event in the crypto and DePIN space. If you're not familiar, DePIN stands for Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Networks, and we're going to uncover exactly what went down with the highly anticipated Grass Stage 2 rewards drop. Look, for literally millions of people, this was supposed to be the big payday, right? But when that dashboard finally lit up last night, wow, the community reaction was, well, it was explosive. Totally explosive. So we're going to break down the actual numbers, the huge expectations, and the super quiet rule changes that left millions of users just completely stunned. Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand the absolute sheer frustration that is just flooding the community right now, you got to put yourself in the user's shoes for a second. We're talking about a year and a half of mining, literally 515 days of waking up, checking your dashboard, and making sure this app is quietly running in the background, sharing your internet bandwidth day in and day out across maybe 2 or 3 different devices. People were dedicating their actual hardware and paying their actual electricity bills for this project every single day, completely believing they were building towards something massive.
And then hit with the brutal reality, $13.50. Seriously, I'm not joking. $13.50. After a year and a half of constant connection across 3 devices, that was the final total payout for a highly dedicated user in this ecosystem. It's just a staggering contrast, right? Think about it. You have 515 days of agonizing effort, massive expectation, and total commitment, and it all boils down to a microscopic financial reward that barely even covers a fast food burger.
So to figure out why this hit the community so hard, we really have to look at the immense hype building up to June, because the scale of this whole operation was absolutely gigantic. We're talking 6.29 million users actively farming. The project allocated 170 million tokens, and it was backed by $14 million in venture funding. Because Stage 1 actually paid out decent money. Like, some people walked away with thousands. Literally nobody expected these tiny numbers this time around. Users were throwing around expectations of maybe $600, $1,000, or even more. But the reality? The payouts weren't even in some volatile new token you could watch on a chart or desperately hope it pumps later on. No, it was paid out in USDC, a stablecoin, meaning it's fixed. Whatever final numbers showed up on your screen last night, that was it. The whole shebang. No second chances, no future upside, forever. So when those final numbers actually hit the screens, the user frustration within the community was visceral. It was immediate. Somebody who had literally farmed for almost 2 full years fired back with just 4 words. We got scammed. Boom. You can really feel the raw disappointment in that, right? All of a sudden, the actual sunk costs of running background hardware for months on end became painfully clear. Another user who had been locked into the system for a year and 3 months called it exactly what it felt like. They said, "You didn't even reimburse my electricity bill." And it's true. When you run computers and devices nonstop for over a year, that power draw is very real. For a lot of these users, getting just $13 means they actually operated at a net financial loss. They literally paid more to run the app than they ever got back. And then, man, somebody else summed up the entire mood of the night in just 5 words. Thank you for farming us. Ouch. That perfectly encapsulates this incredibly deep feeling of betrayal. Users went from feeling like active, valued participants earning their fair share of a network to feeling like they were just the product being used. Now, if you thought the $13.50 was bad, oh boy, it wasn't even the worst story of the night. Try $1.04, or 49 cents, or how about 24 cents? And then there's this last one that just blows my mind. One person had run this app for about 9 whole months. They even put in the extra legwork of recruiting people, bringing in 11 referrals. And their total reward for almost a year of absolute loyalty and grinding? 10 cents. A literal dime. You literally can't even buy a piece of gum for the sheer amount of time they spent building this network. Now, what's really interesting about all of this is how we start to open up the mystery box of how exactly a year and a half of dedicated farming turns into mere pocket change. It all comes down to a really crucial, very quiet difference in how Grass actually tracked its points. First, you have Uptime Points, and these were rewarded simply for leaving your device on and staying connected to the network. But second, you have Network Points, and these were completely different. These were only rewarded for bandwidth that actually got routed and actively used by the network. Let's break down the devastating math showing how 500,000 Uptime Points translated to a mere 3 pennies. A user could log in every single day for 515 days, see a massive 491,000 uptime points sitting right there in their dashboard, and naturally feel this false sense of impending wealth, right? But look at the actual value. They were worth basically nothing, 700,000 of a cent each. So that massive 500,000 point stash, it earned them about 3 cents in total. 3 pennies. The actual money, that $13, came almost entirely from the 2,744 network points, which were valued much higher at almost half a cent each. To really wrap our heads around how these depend background apps actually function behind the scenes, think of this brilliant empty taxi metaphor. I love this. Imagine 6.29 million taxis parked on the exact same stretch of road for 2 years. Their engines are running, their meters are on, and they are just waiting for a fare. But on any given day, only enough passengers show up for a tiny, tiny fraction of those taxis. So if nobody calls your specific taxi, you just sit there. It doesn't matter if you waited an hour or if you waited 2 years. No fare, no pay. And this brilliantly illustrates the harsh technical reality. Just being present isn't the same as being used. The actual desktop app, that actually routed requests and did the heavy lifting, earning those crucial network points. But the Chrome extension, it was connected the entire time, sure, but it earned exactly 0 network points. Not low, 0. Imagine running that extension for a year, literally watching the connection light blink every day, only to realize Grass never routed a single request through it. It was literally a taxi nobody ever called. Let's move to the timeline and see how this builds chronologically. Because when you map this out across the project's history, that awful rug pull feeling users are experiencing makes total sense. The whole mining period began way back in October 2024, but the absolutely crucial moment happened very quietly during what was called Epoch 11. That is when Grass shifted the entire formula heavily toward network points. Fast forward to June of this year, the final USDC rewards were revealed to the absolute shock of the community. Looking ahead, the claim window opens on July 22nd, and users have until January of next year to actually claim their funds. And after that deadline, any unclaimed money goes right back to Grass for good. That quiet shift in Epoch 11 absolutely changed everything. If you were farming before that shift, relying on your uptime points climbing higher and higher, you really thought you were training for a marathon. You thought your loyalty and your duration mattered most. But halfway through the race, without much warning at all to the average user, the rules changed to a sprint. The people who ran the app the longest didn't actually win. Only those who had the fastest, most utilized bandwidth right at the very end actually walked away with a profit. But, the system definitely did generate profit for a very select few. $7,352. That was the massive payout for the single top leaderboard account. So this proves the system wasn't broken or entirely rigged against everyone. It just hyper-optimized to ruthlessly reward exactly what it was built to measure, real bandwidth and real traffic, rather than just user loyalty and time spent waiting around. So the crucial point is this. We had a total pool of $3 million being distributed across 6.29 million people. It's a math problem. But a highly complex mathematical formula that almost nobody fully understood ran quietly in the background for nearly 2 years. And ultimately, that quiet formula is exactly what decided who got a massive $7,000 payout and who got a literal dime out of the total pool. Which brings us to the ultimate question for absolutely anyone who participated in this massive depin experiment. How much did a year and a half actually buy you? Seriously, not the top leaderboard number, but your number. When you look at it today, what did your time, your sunk costs on hardware, and your actual electricity amount to? Drop your own numbers in the comments below. Let's see what running this background app actually bought all of us. And I'll see you in the next one.